Yorkshire's a pretty good place for railway viaducts, and this is one of the best of them. This is the one in Denby Dale, which is on the Penistone line, the line between Huddersfield and Barnsley. And this is going to be the starting point for a 6.5 mile walk through the very attractive countryside on the border between West Yorkshire and South Yorkshire. So we're going to start off by walking alongside this massive viaduct, and the railway line accompanies us for quite a way on the first half of our walk. Before the Industrial Revolution, in the first half of the 19th century, Denby Dale would just be a collection of farms, the usual South Pennines dual economy, bit of farming and a bit of handloom weaving. And it wasn't till transport improved in the first half of the 19th century, firstly by a couple of roads. The road behind me was the turnpike from Wakefield, and the road we'll cross in a couple of minutes was the turnpike from Barnsley, and they came here in the 1820s, which improved the transport links. But of course it was with the coming of the railway in the 1840s that the Industrial Revolution really took off. And this building that we're passing now was the biggest of the mills in Denby Dale. It still specialises in fine yarns, Hinchliffe Mill. This viaduct, of course, is built of stone. This was opened in 1880, but the first viaduct over here, which was opened in 1850, was built of wood. And it was the job of one of the railway employees to make sure that there was a set of buckets of water kept along the viaduct in case of fire. But unfortunately, because the buckets shook so much when a train went over, they could only be kept half full. Otherwise the water would just slop over the edge. Much easier in stone. Well, this is the Barnsley Turnpike Road, and this is an interesting engineering feature. The railway viaduct doesn't go straight across the road, it goes across at an angle. This is a skew bridge, much admired by the civil engineers. There are actually three Denbys: Denby Dale, down in the valley bottom, Upper Denby, which is a small hamlet, and Lower Denby, which is really just a farm or two. Now there's something I didn't expect to see on this walk: a flock of alpacas grazing in the sunshine. Well, we've reached the top of the hill, and someone has had the kindness to put a bench here from which one can admire that lovely view of the Down Valley. But there are the houses of Upper Denby, so on we go. Now then, here's a junction. Just come up the public bridleway, there's a public footpath over there, there's another track up there, there's another track up there. We won't take any of them. We'll cross the stile straight ahead. Oh, there's another sign pointing down there, public footpath. Over the stile. So here we are in Upper Denby. There's the George. I wonder which George it is, portrayed on the sign outside. This is the only pub we come to on the walk today, but a bit too early, so on we go. There's the footpath sign we want. This is a fine style. Oh, there's Barnsley in the distance, moving into South Yorkshire. We don't come across many arable fields on this walk, but here's a big one, and this is a little bit naughty of the farmer. He's allowed to plough up this field, but he's got to restore the public right-of-way after he's ploughed it. And what they often do is run a tractor across the field to indicate where the right-of-way runs. Now, a tractor has been run across this field, but it's pretty vague, and coming from that direction, there's a waymark on the tree over there. There's no sign of a path at all. So I would say this has not really been adequately restored. But we're on the right line because there's a waymark, another Barnsley boundary walk waymark on the post there. Well, here we are at Gunthwaite Hall, one of the highlights of the walk. Oh, there's Mrs. Griffiths waiting to show us around. Hello.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
You've picked a very nice morning.
We have, haven't we? It's lovely.
Today.
Yes. So this is the famous barn.
Yes.
Gosh, how old do you think it is?
This was built between 1519 and 1580.
Right, 16th century.
Thereabouts.
It's a whopper.
Yeah. There are 280 tons of slate on that roof, but not 1 ounce of weight on the walls. It's all on the wooden pillars inside.
Right. So how many doors are there in?
There are 3 down each side. That gives you 3 threshing floors.
Right. So you could drive in one side and out the
straight
other.
Straight out
Right.
you could.
Yeah.
And it says that it's wide enough in this barn. It's actually 15 yards wide, and they could have turned around 6 oxen and a wain. There are 11 bays in there, and it's all held together with wooden pegs. One apprentice spent his whole apprentice, allegedly, making the wooden pegs for this barn.
Right. So 15 yards wide, and how long is it?
55 yards long.
55 yards long.
And 10 yards high.
And 10 yards high.
They're pinned at the top and the bottom. They're not hinged in the centre. They're pinned into stone at the bottom and wood at the top, which we do occasionally have them all open. And it's very useful for stacking straw in there.
I find the most interesting bits, apart from the barn, are these
the dovecotes.
The dovecotes and the gables, because they seem to me very high quality. They're clearly 17th century buildings, and when I first came through here years ago, I thought that's the hall. It's just so good, that must be the hall.
That's what a lot of people assume.
And you know, I find it, why did they build such good houses there, or buildings there, if that wasn't actually the place they lived?
I think it's probably because they had the staff and the time and the materials and the money, and they wanted to make a statement to mark their plot.
Sure.
And when you think that perhaps it was their main source of fresh meat, you know, they could fill it with the doves or pigeons or whatever. We're looking here at the front of this barn, and you can see it's got the black and white herringbone style colouring. That's a more decorative side to the other, which is just straight up and down. Yeah. Mm. The Lord and Gentry at the time liked to look at pleasing architecture, I think. Spent a lot of time and effort on things like that. Originally, the hall could have been built by the Bosvilles, because the Godfrey Bosville was an important character in building these buildings. And there's a lot of date stones with Godfrey Bosville's name on this.
Right, right.
But in the generations there's several Godfrey Bosvilles, so it's difficult to distinguish between one and another.
That's always the case as well. They use the same name again and again. Yes, they do.
Right, we'll see you later.
Good. Thanks very
Cheerio.
much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Coming over. We only pass one main road on this walk. That's one of the great advantages. Here we are, the busy A629, the Huddersfield to Sheffield Road. Blue arrow through this bridle gate. I think the most important thing to remember about the Ramblers Association is that it's not a walking club. We do, of course, put on rambles for our members, and they're a very important part of our activities. But they're not our prime function. The Ramblers Association is a campaigning organisation, and it campaigns particularly to protect footpaths, public rights of way, and to increase access to the countryside. We've achieved a great deal since we were founded in 1935. All the rights of way now are on definitive footpath maps. One of our major successes was the recent Access to the Countryside Act for access to open country, in other words, to uncultivated mountain, moorland and common land. One of our major campaigns for the future is to try to secure the same sort of access to coastal land. Well, we're quite high up now, and it's pretty windy, but there's a good view from here. Straight ahead, there's Bird's Edge. That's where the River Down rises. A little bit further round, that's Upper Cumberworth. A little bit further still, there's the famous, well-known Emily Moore television mast, 1,000 feet high. And below us is Denby Dale, where we started from. This is interesting. This is Denby Delf, and Delf is a quarry. And quarrying was a very important local industry here in the 19th century. Yorkshire stone was very much sought after. It was discovered that it was very resistant to seawater. And so in the 19th century, Yorkshire stone was exported all over the world. So, for example, the harbours at Calcutta and Bombay and Sydney and Copenhagen are built from Yorkshire stone. Oh, this is a splendid piece of path, a lovely flight of stone steps, but they can get pretty slippery in wet weather. Fortunately, it's dry today, so I'll take it easy. And they have chiselled some sort of protection on the stones to make them less slippery. Now we've reached High Flats, very picturesque little hamlet which has been a Quaker community since the 17th century. And here someone is going to show us around the Friends Meeting House. Ah, hello. Nice to see you. John, hello. Douglas Cossar. David,
Douglas.
hello.
Welcome. Yep. Nice to meet you.
You're going to show us around? Oh, lovely.
Do come in.
Thank you very much. After you.
Okay. Go on, after you first. Go on, Douglas.
Come
Right,
on
that's
then,
that.
and just have a look. Oh yes, I wouldn't have bothered to have taken my hat off at one time as a Quaker. In a meeting house like this, all Quaker men sat with their hats on
Really?
and only took them off if prayer was being offered.
Right.
And,
So would you like me to put it back on again?
No, of course not. Not in this day and age. Things have changed. I mean, like in the old days, when you'd have walked in, you'd have expected to have seen somebody in a peculiar outfit, Quaker dress.
Yes.
Plain dress, they call it. Now, nobody in Quakers wears peculiar outfits. You know, it's changed so much. But this meeting house, as you can see, recently done like this, about 1856, actually.
Right. But the building itself is
The building
much older than
itself
that.
is much older. We are standing 6 feet above the original barn part in which they met. They had to meet in a barn in a hidden place like this because, of course, it was illegal to not be part of the established church.
Mm-hmm.
And they had conventicles and 5 people meeting together, and this sort of thing could be arrested. And Quakers refused to pay tithes. So they had to hide where they couldn't be got at by the vicar and his myrmidons very easily.
And when did it start here?
Well, they were holding meetings here in the 1640s, but that wasn't Quakers, that was just seekers who weren't willing to go to church. And then by 1652, Quakers had started, and people like George Fox and others were walking through from Nottingham up through Balby on the edge of Doncaster and through here, heading up into the Lake District to the 1652 country. So we're pretty sure that they called in here on their way, because they walked through much of the route you have just followed from Denby. And so it's been a long established Quaker meeting house. And of course, since Quakers were not allowed to do anything useful like becoming lawyers or priests or go to university, they had to do things like establishing tanneries, establishing things, iron foundries, quarries, a home for inebriate women just up the road there that you will see from our burial ground outside, useless things like that. And it grew up as a piecemeal hamlet. I always say that it's much more a Quaker omelette than a Quaker hamlet. And now there is only the one dwelling that is occupied by a Quaker and owned by Quakers, and that is the Quaker cottage partway up the lane.
And you have a meeting here
Every first day, which is what
Every
Quakers called Sundays,
Yes.
because of course they would only number the days, not use the heathen gods' names of them.
Right.
And of course all these benches faced the elders' benches, which are still there.
The elders' benches are
Those coloured benches at the far end, and those are Jacobean apparently. So when they rebuilt the place, they didn't waste good benches and whatnot, they just jacked the whole lot up. And the elders and overseers sat and ensured that propriety was being observed during meeting.
And how many people would come normally to
this meeting? Anything up to 150 or
Really?
so. Oh yes, on a standard basis. Even before the war, there were still 30 to 50 people fairly regularly in meeting here.
The burial ground goes back how far?
That wasn't opened properly until somewhere in the 1800s fully.
And this one is still in use?
This one is still in use. Oh yes, people are dying to get in there.
But only Quakers?
Only Quakers. But normally one has to be in Quaker membership because there are no charges or anything
Right.
for
Very
Quakers in membership of this meeting.
And it's now back to Denby Dale for the rest of the walk. Good. Many, many thanks. Bye-bye. Well, we're on the home stretch now, downhill all the way from here to Denby Dale, and there in the distance is the viaduct where we started off. Getting a bit chilly now, the light's going, so just as well we're nearing the end of the walk, but it's been a splendid day.